to our 6th Lunchtime Boost. We are so glad that you're here. Thanks for taking some time to be with us today. And we are so excited for today's Boost. We're talking all about books today. And we've heard from our followers that books are so important right now. They are really getting you through. And when we think about books and what books to read, there is one local book curator. She creates these lists that we follow all the time. Amy Wilson Sheldon is a writer, editor, and communications consultant with a dash of literary event production on the side. Her writing has appeared in the Boston Globe, Books Ireland, the Dublin Review of Books, and the Curator. And since 2015, she has written regularly about books and reading culture at alivelyread.com. And in 2018, started sharing her musings on Instagram and Facebook. And it's at A Lively Read for both of those. And I follow them both, and you should too. Amy's a 2018 graduate of Leadership Metro West Leadership Academy, as am I, and that's how we met. I graduated in 2015, and Amy, I feel the same way about you, that experience has given her the inspiration and network to dive into her reading work more deeply. And I'm so thrilled to welcome Amy Wilson Sheldon to our Boost today.
Thanks, Jen. I'm really glad that you guys are here. I know the other Boosts and actually just life in general is maybe a little more serious, as it rightfully should be. There's a lot going on. You are probably in the middle of your day fielding work calls, wrangling / trying to supplement your children and their education, and just intaking a lot of scary information. So I hope today this little boost is kind of a bright spot in your day and provides you a little inspiration and gives you some tips and tools and reasons why reading might be this sort of escape from our reality, if we will, in times like this. Just before we get started kind of with the conversation and the questions, I wanted to share something on March 12th, which in many ways seems like a long time ago, but in other ways, I'm like, what month is it? And I don't even know March. When was that? But March 12th, if you remember, was about the time schools were closing here in Massachusetts. It's when the conversation in the news started escalating very quickly about our current circumstance. Kind of felt like we were going 0 to 60 with a lot of scary stuff, a lot of data thrown at us. I was on Twitter and I saw this quote, and it's just meant so much to me, and I wanted to share it with you. I want to make sure I attribute it properly. It was shared by Ibram X. Kendi. He is an author, professor at American University in DC. And he wrote this: "As we practice social distancing, let's not distance ourselves from books. They will keep us company, connect us back to people, back to society." And I just feel that so strongly, and maybe you do too, or if you don't, maybe you might walk away from this afternoon feeling that way.
I love that, Amy. That's so perfect. You wrapped it up perfectly with that quote. Thank you for sharing that. So tell us, what are some of the genres that we should be looking at? We had a chat yesterday, and maybe you shouldn't be just sticking to what you know and what you're used to.
Yeah, so before, kind of, Jen, when you and I connected over this, I knew there were a couple different places I wanted to reach out to people. I know what I like to read, but like, we're all different. There are a lot of women here. We're all different. I see one of my sisters-in-law, who I'm going to reference in a second. And first of all, I want to say I have 3 sisters-in-law. I'm just going to call them sisters because sister-in-law is a cumbersome phrase, especially when you're using the plural. Yeah. And I reached out to them. They all enjoy to read. They are all very different. Just to give you a quick background, one is a former IT project manager in kind of a past life. She just got certified as a yoga teacher and is working on her own novel. One is in the hospitality industry and one is a neurosurgeon. They all have children ranging from age 1, literally today, my nephew's 1 today, to a college student who has come home to continue her education at home for now. Very different women, had different things to say. So I want to quickly just tell you a little bit what they said, why they like to read. They like to read for escapism, to learn something new, travel, like armchair travel, to help us reframe our life and see it kind of through a different lens. Allow us to step in the shoes of someone else who's different than us, or maybe a group of people who are different from us, to relax. And I kind of wanted to add to find comfort. I think especially now, comfort, maybe you're reading an old childhood classic, or a book that brings you comfort, makes you feel cozy. So I do have different genres, which I can share now, Jen, if you want me to go ahead and do that, or.
Sure. So we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to talk about what books we can be reading now by genre. And then we'll also talk about some resources to support you through finding the books when you might not have the ability to get to a place where books are, but there are tons of resources out there.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start with, this is, I think, a genre that maybe appeals to a lot of people, especially now, which I call maybe more a cotton candy genre. It's what my mother-in-law calls it, actually. She calls it cotton candy, and she sometimes says that a little with disdain because she feels bad that she likes cotton candy, but I say anything that makes you feel good and is sweet and is easy to digest, I think that's awesome. So I have a couple book covers, both real book covers and printouts. Now I have this virtual background, so like it disappears. So I'm going to be holding some things up a little bit over my face. The first book I wanted, kind of this fun, lighthearted genre, is called American Housewife. It's by Helen Ellis. She is hilarious. She's snarky, she's funny, she's clever. This is a book of short stories that take place both in Manhattan and the South, like Mississippi is one of the places, and they're just sharp and clever and funny. She has a book of essays that came out just the other day in paperback called Southern Lady Code. So if you're into essays, I would recommend that. One of my sisters-in-law, we said we were just going to say sisters, loves indie authors, which I would also kind of put in that cotton candy category. It's like a lot of times it's romance, they're self-published. She wanted to recommend The Sea of Tranquility by Kat Miller. So those are two. I think a lot of people are drawn toward something fun and a little bit easy at times like this. But I wanted to switch gears a little bit. So there's that genre. I also think historical fiction is often really good at this time, because even though none of us, unless you aged exceedingly well, have lived through a pandemic, but there have been other tough things in history that kind of allow us to see our current circumstances through a different lens. Followers recommended this book, The Giver of Stars, there we go, by Jojo Moyes. You maybe have heard of Jojo Moyes because of Me Before You, which turned into a movie. And this is a book about pack horse librarians in rural Kentucky. And then really quick, not so much in the historical fiction, but I want to group it in here because it's maybe about current things we talk about and current issues and circumstances. That is A Woman Is No Man. This is a Jenna's book club, Jenna Bush Hager, I guess, from the Today Show. This was her pick, and it deals with a woman who emigrates to America from Palestine. Or a Palestinian woman who immigrates to America. So historical fiction, that is that. And then I think there are a couple more I wanted to share in the memoir camp. That is The Body Papers by Grace Telusian. She is also a local writer, and I also did another virtual event with her. She's actually going to be at an event that I'm doing with Jen, actually at the middle of June, which we can maybe share about later. But she was for many years a teacher at Tufts, and now she's actually the writer in residence at Brandeis. And this is her story of immigration, of abuse. So there are some sort of trigger warnings there for people about health issues. She's overcome a lot of obstacles, and she's framed them all kind of in this, using her body as a way to frame all this. And it is magnificent. And the other
Amy,
one.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
So how do you find these books? How do you find these authors? And, what are your go-to resources for getting all these different titles?
So for this in particular, I actually reached out to Instagram followers because I love to hear what other people are reading, whether that's other authors or, other people like me who like to read. I personally love going to indie bookstores. Silver Unicorn in Acton is my sort of go-to, and they have fantastic curated lists. And I can just sort of always count on the booksellers there to have a really wonderful list of resources. Also just on social media, and personally, I find Instagram the best for that, just because books are also very visually appealing to a lot of people. You follow a hashtag or an author that you like, and you're off and running.
Yeah. What kind of hashtags? Would they be hashtags by genre?
Yep. So, I mean, if you are looking just to start, Bookstagram is the hashtag to start. That will take you down a zillion rabbit holes. But then you start finding, if you're like, I like dystopian fiction, there's a hashtag for that. And you will start finding who the people are that are either writing those books or reviewing those titles. So it's a little bit trial and error, but I do find Instagram the best social media tool for finding that.
Okay, awesome. And I know that you're going to be sharing a resource list too. And some of these titles that you shared today will be on that, yep. And we'll get that out to our followers as well. So we're right at the point where we then go to our audience and ask some great questions. So Amy and I were talking yesterday. We'd love to hear what are some of your favorite reads for escapism, for armchair travel. Jump in there and let us know. If you have something that you'd like to share, give us a thumbs up or clapping hands with your little emoticons down at the bottom, the reactions. And if you want to share during the chat, I'm happy to read the chat too, if you're more comfortable with that. So you let us know. I see lots of smiles. Yes, all right. Coach D. All right, I'm coming to you. You are now unmuted.
Okay. All right, great. So this one, I don't have my favorite one so far I don't have in front of me, which was like a murder mystery book, which I never read. I'm always reading self-help and, diving into personal development stuff. So that was a fun book. I got that pretty much right away. It was by David Bottaducci or something along those lines. It's one of those, someone's nodding their head. They can probably say the last name better. But that was a total escape book. And it was just one of those ones like a James Patterson novel where the chapters are 2 or 3 pages. So you feel like you're accomplishing a lot. And it was great. It totally captivates you and it tunes out everything else. But my favorite book, and I'm almost finished with it, is this one. Oh. Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. By Laurie Gottlieb. It's fantastic. It's hilarious. So she's an actual therapist who went to medical school, who also she was a writer on ER when like the Clooney days of ER. So she has these fabulous stories that she can go on and on and on about. And she talks about kind of her history of how she became a therapist and ultimately a writer. And this book talks about clients of hers, patients of hers, who we can all relate to, because there's stories of every kind of relationship issue, every kind of self-doubt issue, every kind of addiction, all kinds of stuff. And she tells it in a way that there's empathy, but it's lighthearted, so you're laughing constantly. And she also goes to a therapist because she goes through this very tragic breakup. And so it's being on the other side of the couch. And it's stellar. So there's a lot of lessons in here that I think are relative anytime, particularly right now. I'm finding it very helpful to recognize the stuff that's in the brain because the therapist walks you through it. It's a great one. I highly recommend this one.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
All right. Someone else want to share?
Can I say something really quick, Jen?
Please, yeah, sorry. Go.
There, but I was going to say that term bibliotherapy, which I'm not sure if she uses in that book or not. I haven't read it, but I know what it is. Some people think that's a little woo-woo, like, using fiction as a way to help you solve your own problems. I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. I like to say reading is relevant, meaning even if you're reading fiction, like you can find truths, little nuggets in there. And there are a lot of books that help me in a way that maybe a self-help book would do the same thing, but fiction to me works as well sometimes. So thanks for sharing that.
All right, we're going to go to your sister.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I'm a huge young adult fiction fan, as Amy knows, she sent me the email and I was like, okay, I got to answer at least one non-young adult novel. Anyway, so if you are into young adult, or even if you're not, two bingeable book series that I highly recommend that are just so much fun to read and definitely escapism. One is by Holly Black, and it's called Folks of the Air Trilogy, and it begins with the book The Cruel Prince, and it's just so good. It's got romance, it's got adventure, it's got a crazy leading heroine, and she's got a weird twin sister who does random stuff, and it deals with the folks of the air are basically in the fairy land that she's created, and it's just tons of fun. And there's 3 of them, and she's finished the trilogy, so you don't have to wait for the next one, which I hate having to do. And then the other one I would recommend is the Renegade series by Marissa Mayer. And the Renegade series begins with the book called The Renegades, and it's about a bunch of superheroes who have years of saved the day, and you're in current day, and all these people have different superpowers. You don't really know how they got them. And it's the story of one of the heroes and one of the villains and how they eventually get together. But there's tons of adventure, definitely some romance, and kind of really good world that she built there. So I would highly recommend both those series if you're into YA, or even if you want to just give YA a try.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Amy, you want to comment?
I was also going to say, I also have Elia. She recommended Ninth House. So wanted to point that out. I had that printed out for you, and you said this author was a series of hers was going into pre-production on Netflix.
Yes.
I think. So
yes, it is. Yeah, she's Lee Bardugo. She's one of my favorite YA authors, and that's the duology and the Grishaverse, the Grisha book series that she wrote. They're I think they finished principal photography and they're going into post-production. The series for Netflix. Yeah, so I actually got to go to a book signing for Ninth House. So I actually own 2 copies of signed copies of Ninth House, and I've read it a couple of times. It's really good, and it's.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, it's not YA. It's actually adult fiction. So there's definitely more in terms of some creepiness factor, some more deeper and harder issues to tackle. But again, I would highly recommend it. She's a fantastic writer. And it is located at Yale, which is where she went to school, and deals with there's the different clubs that they have there. So you want a bit about those clubs that are actually real clubs at Yale.
Yeah.
So enjoy.
That's awesome. Thank you. Tell us about the difference between YA and adult fiction. And why an author goes from, you know, like J.K. Rowling's goes from YA, I would say, children's books, essentially, but why that transition? And what's the difference?
Do you want me to answer, or do you want to answer, Amy?
I was going to ask Amy.
But
you're the expert too, Elia.
Yeah, so YA is definitely not usually my genre, but I want to tell you what I love about some authors, like you mentioned, J.K. Rowling, and going back to Katrin Schumann, who wrote that This Terrible Beauty that I brought up. I love it when authors do something new and try something new and aren't stuck in the same sort of cycle. So for instance, Katrin's first book was actually sort of a Me Too, I don't want to say a thriller, kind of a suspense dealing with some heavy issues. And then she pivoted and did a book of historical fiction. So I don't know if that's really answering your question about sometimes authors doing YA is more adult fiction. I think an author knows a way that a story needs to be told, maybe, and can shift as necessary. That's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, that's great variety. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else want to share a book? I have to give a shout out. One to Amy's mom, Nancy Wilson, who's on the call. And my mother actually happens to be on the call as well. B, can you give a little wave, Mom? Anyway, I just want to say, there she's waving. I just want to say that she gave me the book, When the Crawdads Sing, Where the Crawdads Sing, and I just finished it, and I just thought that was, I see a lot of nods. Thanks, Mom, because it's probably one of my favorite books of all time. We're big readers in my family. All right, anyone else want to share? That was my personal story. Yeah, Donna, I'm coming to you.
Okay. YA books, Rick Riordan, his books kind of cross over genres. He's an amazing writer. Rachel Hollis for self-help, and Clive Cussler. He writes based on a historic piece of information and writes a fiction book around it. And I love him because he's written several different kind of characters around these pieces in time and bringing them to modern day. So they're long to read, but they're really enjoyable.
Awesome. Thank you, Donna. All right, Shannon, we're coming to you.
Sorry, did you mean this? I know there were a couple of Shannons on.
Oh, sorry, Shannon. Yeah, sorry, both Shannons. Yeah, I was going to the other Shannon Giandarno. I was going to, but I'll come to you next if you want. If you got something
Definitely.
too. Yeah. We can't hear you, the other Shannon. You're unmuted on our end. You might be muted on your end. You're unmuted. Nope, still no. Do you want to type it in the chat? Type it in the chat for us and I'll come right back to you. All right, other Shannon, you want to share?
All right, other Shannon. So I've been reading this book. I don't know if you can see it very well. Left Neglected by Lisa Genova. She wrote the book Still Alice about early onset Alzheimer's, and they made it into a movie with Julianne Moore. This one, Left Neglected, I think I read another one of hers too. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it dealt with Huntington's chorea and that manifests itself. She writes these kind of, because she's a neurologist, I guess, and so she writes these sort of dark things that really pull at your heartstrings. So this Left Neglected is about a woman who's a really fast-paced executive with young children who lives a really, really fast life and never takes time for herself. And she gets into this car accident and ends up with a brain injury where she can't recognize the left side of her body at all. Her left hand, the left side of her face, like at all. So I'm only about halfway through, but I find the way that she weaves this human story into something that's so tragic is really interesting to me. It felt the same way about Still Alice. It was just it's like I almost hate it and love it all at the same time.
That it's painful
it's
to
really
read,
awful.
but it's
And
great. Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of relate to that fast-paced, like never taking time for yourself, always, go, 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 go. I have to get all this stuff done. And then you see what can happen. And so then you think, oh, crap.
I love it. Thanks, Shannon. All right, someone else want to share? Amy, do you want to talk about other resources for other family members too?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just reiterate that even though our libraries are closed, they're not. They're totally open. This might be obvious 101 to you, but just in case it's not, there is so much digital content that you can get for yourself, for your children. It's amazing. If you don't have a library card, your librarian still wants you to get a digital access card. So please follow. All you need is a card and an electronic device. I also want to say that there is a resource, and this is good for adults and for children, which is bookshop.org. I'm not trying to be against Amazon here. Amazon, I understand, is really good for a lot of things. Maybe not toilet paper or, at the moment, but let's support our independent bookstores.
Hello?
Oh, Shannon, we heard you.
Microphone.
Now, wow, this is fancy. We're gonna start karaoke next.
Yeah. So just really quickly, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna mute her and go ahead, Amy.
Just really quickly, bookshop.org is like the Amazon of independent booksellers.
Okay.
You would be so surprised what you can find there, and they have curated lists for kids, for tweens, teens, for adults. There's even a list, speaking of our moms, it's called Books That My Mom Likes. I don't know who curated it, but it's just, it's phenomenal. Check it out, and your end proceeds go to the independent bookstore of your choosing. So
very cool. All right, I love that. All right, Shannon, we're coming to you now with your microphone.
My technical difficulties.
There we go. We hear you.
Now, one of the things I wanted to mention that I use all the time is Audible, to listen to books, because I used to travel a lot. Now none of us are traveling much, but and I like to run, and I listen to books, and sometimes I run an extra 2 or 3 miles just to listen to the book because I want to see what's going to happen. So I'd highly suggest that for people if they want. And the one I just finished, which was interesting, was More Myself by Alicia Keys. So I don't know if you're Alicia Keys fans, but she just came out with this book like a month ago, and it's good. And listening to Audible, she actually sings some on the Audible rather that you would not get in the book. And she has people like Oprah and other people kind of come on and say little things too. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. Thank you. Good.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share? Lisa, coming to you. Go ahead, Lisa. You're on. Yep.
So first, the other Lisa Genova book, because that was my original, was Love Anthony, which was fantastic, as well as Love Neglected. I wanted to share The Alice Network by Kate Quinn, which is historical fiction, and it's set in America and France during World War I, and it's a couple of female spies that were recruited to the Alice Network, and they connected with an American socialite. Very good. It's empowering. Gives you a little bit of history, but it's fictional too, and there's a little bit of romance in it as well.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Kathy, did you want to share?
Me?
Oh, I guess not.
Me? I have a couple of books that I'm reading. One is a poetry book, and it's called The Art of Falling. And it's written by a woman in England. Her name is Kim Moore, and she's got some really great poems in there. Other book I'm reading is called Elevate by Robert Glazier, and he is amazing. He does a Friday email, and he's great for team building and things like that. He's a great writer, and we do a lot of his stories in our magazine. And that's what I'm reading right now. But I'm going to read Where the Crawdad Sings, because you talked me into that.
I know. We were on a call earlier. Yeah. That was a good one. Anyone else? Jane, you want to share a book?
Actually, I have a neck injury, so I use Audible a lot. And right now, I am Man's Search for Meaning. I know it's an older book, but I'm searching for meaning right now.
Yeah. Good time for that. All right.
That's it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I wrote it down. That's why I was pausing. Thanks, Jane. All right, Amy, we are at the time where we need to say goodbye, but we are so thrilled that you came today. I know people are going to be watching this one. This is recorded, so we will share this out. These were great recommendations. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Friday's Boost is all about relationships. That's one that you definitely have to come back for. All of them you have to come back for, but that one I know is going to be really special, just like this one was. So we're grateful that you joined us. Thank you, Amy, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.